ACT circumstances don't matter, ladies and gentlemen. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when life appears to contradict the very thing you're believing for. You look around and everything seems opposite to your desire. The evidence mocks your faith. The circumstances say it's impossible. But I stand before you to tell you circumstances don't matter. What matters is how you see yourself in the midst of them. What matters is the state you occupy, the inner world you choose to live from even when the outer world seems against you. To act as if circumstances don't matter is not about denying what's in front of you, it's about denying its power over you. It is about standing tall in the truth that you are more than what your senses reveal. For everything you call reality began as an unseen assumption, a quiet thought, an inner conviction. The invisible is the seed of the visible. The spiritual precedes the physical. The inner determines the outer. When you learn to live from this understanding, you stop reacting to appearances and start commanding them. You stop fighting circumstances and begin forming them. You realize that your job is not to fix the outer world. Your job is to hold the inner image of who you truly are and what you have already received in consciousness. And as you persist in that state, the world must bend to reflect it. This is the true power of acting as if. It is not pretense. It is participation in divine law. It is stepping into the vibration of your fulfilled desire long before it arrives. It is walking by faith and not by sight. You start to move, speak, and feel as one who already possesses the thing you seek. You start to embody the energy of answered prayer, of completed manifestation, and the universe, obedient and exact, begins to shape itself around your new identity. Every great miracle, every transformation begins with this decision, to believe beyond evidence, to trust the unseen, to act in alignment with your higher reality. The world may call it delusion, but the spiritually awakened call it faith, and faith is the master key that unlocks every door. So tonight, as you listen to these words, I invite you to let go of the tyranny of circumstances. Let go of what your senses say cannot happen. Let go of how long it's taken. Instead, dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Assume it's already done, already real, already yours, and dare to live from that place. For when you act as if circumstances don't matter, you are no longer at the mercy of life. You become the author of it. You rise above appearances and step into the realm where all things are possible. You become one with your creation, and the world, sooner or later, must mirror your faith. Circumstances are shadows, not substance. They are the reflection of what you have already accepted as true within yourself. Everything that appears before you in this physical world is a mirror of an inner state, an invisible assumption brought to life. The problem is, most people live as if the shadow has power over the light. They bow to the outer evidence, not realizing it only exists because of what shines within. When you allow circumstances to dictate your faith, you are letting the shadow lead light. You are allowing an effect to define the cause. But when you reverse that, when you stand firm in the knowing that your inner state is the true reality, the outer must eventually conform. It has no choice. The unseen governs the seen. The invisible moves the visible. Life is never happening to you, it is responding through you. Everything in your world right now is the echo of a previous belief. What you see today was once an unseen conviction, and so to change anything in your life, you must stop wrestling with the echo and start changing the song. The outer world cannot help but obey the inner pattern. When you accept this truth, fear loses its grip. You no longer react to lack, delay, or opposition because you understand they are temporary projections, not final realities. Think of the world as a mirror. When you look into it and frown, the reflection frowns back. You could spend a lifetime trying to change the reflection, scolding it, forcing it, rearranging it, but until you change your expression, the mirror remains the same. Circumstances are that mirror. They have no independent power. They only reveal the consciousness that formed them. So instead of trying to fix the reflection, you learn to fix the face, the inner image, the state of being from which all things flow. When you act as if circumstances don't matter, you are not ignoring reality. You are acknowledging the deeper one. You are saying, the truth of my being is greater than what my senses report. You stand in the light of your assumption even when darkness surrounds you. You refuse to let appearances deceive you into doubt, for what appears real is nothing but the outer crust of an inner dream taking form. The one who understands this truth becomes unshakable. Storms may come, winds may blow, but the inner conviction remains still, untouched, knowing that the world must bend to its belief. Every time you hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled, despite what you see, you are reprogramming creation itself. You are rewriting the pattern that dictates what happens. Next, many people spend their lives reacting to shadows chasing money, love, health, or success as if those things exist outside of them. But everything you desire is already contained within the consciousness that imagines it. There is no distance between you and your manifestation except illusion created by belief in circumstances. The moment you stop treating the outer as master, you step into your rightful dominion as creator. You must stop saying, "I'll believe it when I see it," and start saying, "I'll see it when I believe it." The order is divine and irreversible. The unseen always precedes the seen. Every time you hold an assumption of being, your outer world begins to rearrange itself to match it, whether you are conscious of it or not. So if you want to change your circumstances, stop focusing on them. They are old news. They are the past recorded in form. Instead, focus on who you are being now. When something undesirable appears, it is not a punishment. It is a projection. It shows you the state you have been dwelling in unconsciously. Use it not to condemn yourself, but to awaken yourself. Instead of saying, "Look what's happening to me," say, "Look what I have been creating." That single shift from victimhood to authorship transforms everything. Circumstances are powerless until you give them meaning. You are the one breathing life into them by your reaction. The same situation can crush one person and crown another, depending on how they interpret it. Therefore, your freedom is not found in changing the outer world, but in changing your perception of it. Once you cease to fear appearances, you discover how fluid and obedient they really are. The outer world is like clay in the hands of consciousness. It takes shape according to your dominant feeling. If you persist in fear, the clay hardens into struggle. If you persist in faith, it hardens into fulfillment. But the moment you see circumstances for what they are, mere shadows, you reclaim your power as the sculptor. You stop waiting for change and become the change. There is a sacred stillness that comes when you no longer chase the world for evidence. You realize that creation is finished, that all possibilities already exist in the eternal now. You are simply selecting which version of reality you wish to experience by aligning your inner state with it. When you remain faithful to that inner state, the outer must eventually mirror it. It may delay, it may disguise itself, but it cannot deny the law. So when circumstances look contrary, remind yourself, this is not the truth, this is a reflection of an old state. You don't fight the shadow, you change the position of the light. You realign your consciousness with your desired end. You walk, speak, and think from that new position. You occupy the state of already done, until the shadow catches up, and it will, because the world is compelled to express your inner conviction. This is why the masters never panicked in the presence of lack or sickness or chaos. They saw through the illusion. They knew the outer world could not contradict the inner truth for long. They stood still and let the unseen law do its work. That is the discipline of faith, to stay loyal to the invisible even when the visible screams the opposite. To act as if circumstances don't matter is to honor the creative power within you. It is to declare that you are not the reflection but the source of the reflection. It is to live from the inside out, to create deliberately, to know that nothing outside of you holds the authority to define your destiny. The shadow may appear dark, but it cannot exist without light, and that light is you, the awareness that imagines, believes, and assumes. When you walk in the awareness of your divine authorship, the world becomes your canvas, your mirror, your testimony. Every circumstance bends before the one who understands this truth. The outer is powerless against the inner, so stop bowing to the shadows. Stop measuring your progress by what the world shows you. Circumstances are echoes, not evidence. The real substance is the unseen conviction alive in your heart. Remain faithful to that unseen reality, and you will watch every circumstance, no matter how resistant, dissolve, rearrange, and reform itself in perfect obedience to your inner vision. Faith is the art of acting beyond evidence. It is living from a reality that has not yet appeared, walking in the unseen as if it were already visible. To act as if is to live in that sacred space between what is and what is becoming, knowing that this invisible bridge is not imagination, it is creation. Faith is not blind, it sees deeper than the eyes. It sees through appearances into essence, through delay into destiny, through nothingness into fullness. When you live by faith, you are not waiting for life to prove something to you. You are proving something to life. You are saying, I already am what I seek. This is the essence of creation. Everything you now see was once an invisible ideal carried by someone who dared to act before evidence appeared. The moment you embody the end, when you think, speak, move, and feel as the person who already has what you desire, you activate the unseen law that governs all manifestation. Faith demands a different kind of vision. It asks you to look at lack and see abundance, to look at delay and see divine timing, to look at an empty room and feel the fullness of answered prayer. The world calls this foolish, but heaven calls it alignment. You are never waiting for something to happen. You are aligning with what already exists in potential form. When your inner world matches the vibration of your desired outcome, the outer world has no choice but to comply. The one who lives by faith is unmoved by appearances. The outer world may shout impossible, but inwardly there is quiet certainty, a knowing that refuses to be shaken. Acting as if is not pretending, it is possessing, it is taking ownership in consciousness long before the deed is transferred in the physical. You dress, you speak, you plan, you expect, you move as though the promise is already fulfilled. This inner certainty is the signature of faith, and it draws to you the very thing you have claimed within. When you begin to live in this way, the world starts to rearrange itself around your conviction. People, opportunities, and circumstances begin to appear in harmony with your inner assumption. You are no longer a beggar hoping for change. You are a creator commanding it. The secret is not in the outer action, but in the inner acceptance. You can do everything right, outwardly, and still delay your manifestation if inwardly you are still doubting. But one quiet moment of complete acceptance, one pure feeling of it is done, can move mountains. Faith is substance, the invisible material from which the visible is shaped. When you act beyond evidence, you are not ignoring the facts, you are creating new ones. Every miracle in Scripture and history was born from this same pattern, a refusal to bow to appearances, a decision to act in alignment with a higher truth. Faith calls those things that are not as though they were, and by that calling they become. Consider the farmer. He plants seeds in the ground and covers them with soil. He cannot see the harvest, but he acts as though it's guaranteed. He waters, waits, and prepares because his faith in the unseen process is unshakable. If he judged by sight, he would say, there's nothing here, but his knowing tells him it's already happening beneath the surface. So it is with every desire you hold. When you act in faith, even when nothing seems to be moving, the unseen soil of the universe is working in your favor. Faith is not about forcing results, it's about flowing with divine timing. Acting as if doesn't mean pretending or rushing, it means embodying peace before the promise. It is being calm while the storm rages because you know the outcome is already written. Faith is surrender in motion, not passivity, but poised confidence. It's the quiet boldness of one who knows they're standing in victory even when the battlefield still looks chaotic. You will be tested in this. The outer world will challenge your conviction. Delays will whisper, maybe it's not working. People will question your confidence. Logic will demand proof. But faith thrives in contradiction. It draws strength from invisibility. The greater the resistance, the greater the opportunity to anchor yourself in unseen truth. Every challenge is asking you one question: do you still believe? The moment you answer yes, power is released. The secret is persistence. Faith that lasts only until the first sign of trouble is not faith, it's curiosity. Real faith endures the silence. It continues acting, speaking, and feeling from the end, even when no confirmation appears. When you persist in the unseen, the seen eventually surrenders. It must, for the outer is only a shadow of the inner. Imagine a sculptor who already sees the statue inside the stone. While others see a rough block, he sees perfection waiting to emerge. His faith in that vision gives him the patience to chip away at what doesn't belong. In the same way, when you act in faith, you are sculpting your reality. Each thought, feeling, and action aligned with your desired end is a stroke of creation. The form may not yet be visible, but it exists in essence. Faith is not emotion-driven, it is identity-driven. You don't act as if to make something happen, you act as if because you are that something already in consciousness. You assume the role, the state, the vibration of fulfillment until the world reflects it back. This is the divine play of creation. Consciousness becomes reality. When you internalize this truth, you stop asking when and start declaring now. The most powerful way to express faith is through feeling. Feel the reality of your fulfilled desire as vividly as possible. Feel it until it becomes familiar, natural, inevitable. The mind may resist, the senses may protest, but the feeling is the key. Once the feeling becomes dominant, it imprints the subconscious, and the subconscious will faithfully reproduce it in form. Faith is acting beyond logic because you understand a higher law is at work. Logic deals with what has been, faith deals with what will be. The logical mind says this is the fact. Faith says this is the truth. Facts change, truth remains. The moment you choose truth over fact, you transcend limitation. You move from being a reactor to being a creator. To act beyond evidence is to trust the unseen intelligence that governs all things. It is to know that the same power that created galaxies is flowing through you, responding to your inner command. The world mirrors your faith, not your fear. So when you persist in believing, even without proof, you set into motion forces that cannot fail. Every great shift begins in silence, in that invisible moment when someone decides to believe anyway. You may not see immediate results, but the universe never ignores a conviction rooted in faith. The delay is never denial, it is preparation. The unseen is aligning the scene. Your only task is to stay in the state of fulfillment until the evidence appears. So act beyond evidence, speak as if it's done, move as if it's secure, give thanks as if it's received. The world may not yet see what you see, but your conviction is enough. The unseen will become seen, the promise will take form, and circumstances will rearrange in divine order, all because you dared to believe without needing proof. This is faith. To live as if the promise is present, to act as if the unseen is more real than the seen, and to know that every step taken in that assurance is a step closer to the manifestation already waiting for you in the invisible realm. Emotion is the bridge between the invisible and visible. It is the sacred current that carries your thoughts from imagination into manifestation. You can think all the positive thoughts in the world. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but until your heart feels what your lips speak, creation remains incomplete. Thought is the seed, but emotion is the life that makes it grow. The universe responds not to your words, but to the vibration behind them, the feeling that announces what you truly believe to be real. When you act as if, you are not pretending, you are feeling the reality of your fulfilled desire. You are training your emotions to match the end result, not the current circumstance. For every emotion carries a frequency, and that frequency calls to it matching experiences. When you feel lack, you attract more lack. When you feel abundance, you magnetize abundance. Emotion is the magnet that draws reality into form. That is why you must learn to rule your feelings, not let your feelings rule you. The world around you is a mirror, constantly reflecting back your dominant emotional state. You may say, I want success. But if your inner emotion is fear, the mirror will show you more reasons to be afraid. You may declare, I am loved, but if your heart still carries loneliness, the outer world will echo that vibration. Life does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you feel to be true. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret key that unlocks every door. Emotion is divine energy in motion. It is the creative power clothed in feeling. To manifest what you desire, you must bring your body and soul into harmony with your vision. Let your feelings walk ahead of facts. When you imagine your desired end, you must not only see it, you must feel it as real. Feel the joy of having it, the peace of knowing it's done, the gratitude of living in its completion. When you do this, you are constructing the bridge between the unseen and the seen. Every true act of faith is emotional alignment. You are no longer reacting to the world, you are creating from the world within. You stop saying, I'll feel good when it happens, and start saying, I'll feel good because it already has happened in spirit. That shift in emotion is the creative moment. You step into the vibration of completion and become one with your fulfilled desire. The outer world, like a faithful servant, rearranges itself to mirror your emotional state. Feeling is prayer. Every sustained emotion is a command to the universe. You are praying every moment not with words, but with your emotional frequency. If you pray with doubt in your heart, you are broadcasting lack. If you pray with joy and gratitude, you are broadcasting fulfillment. The universe, like a mirror, returns only the signal you send. Therefore, to change your life, change the emotion that fuels your prayers. Emotion is the language of creation. Thought gives direction, but feeling gives power. Without emotion, thought is like a seed that never touches the soil. It remains potential, unexpressed. But once you feel the reality of your desire, once you let that feeling soak into your being, the seed takes root, and the law of growth begins its silent work. You cannot stop the harvest of a seed felt into existence. Most people, however, allow emotions to be dictated by circumstances. They react to what they see instead of feeling what they want. They live as emotional reflections of the outer world rather than emotional creators of it. But when you realize that feeling precedes form, you take back your power. You stop being a thermometer that only measures conditions and become a thermostat that sets them. You no longer ask, "What is happening to me?" Instead, you declare, "What is happening through me?" To act as if circumstances don't matter is to let your emotions align with your vision rather than your environment. You may not yet see abundance, but you feel wealthy. You may not yet see healing, but you feel whole. You may not yet see love, but you feel loved. That emotional alignment draws the invisible into visibility. Feeling is the bridge that carries the unseen promise into seen fulfillment. This is why gratitude is such a powerful force. Gratitude is emotional acceptance that something is already yours. When you give thanks in advance, you are telling the universe, "I already possess it in consciousness." That feeling of gratitude becomes a creative magnet. It pulls the unseen gift into physical form. The grateful heart is always rich, even before evidence appears, and that richness multiplies. Emotion also reveals the truth of your inner state. You can't fake vibration. You may act confident, but if your heart trembles with doubt, the universe feels the truth. You may say, "I believe," but if your emotion contradicts your words, you are divided within yourself. The key is inner coherence, the alignment between thought, feeling, and belief. When all three move as one, creation is inevitable. You must learn to feel on purpose. This is the mastery of conscious creation, to generate emotions independent of outer stimuli. You sit quietly, close your eyes, and imagine the fulfillment of your desire until the feeling rises naturally within you. You nurture that feeling daily, feeding it with imagination and faith. Soon it becomes more real to you than the outer world. That is the moment manifestation becomes unavoidable, for the inner world always precedes the outer. Emotion is also the great revealer of what you truly believe. If you feel anxious, it means your inner world is still focused on the absence of your desire. If you feel peaceful, it means your inner world has already accepted its fulfillment. Your emotions are not your enemy, they are your compass. They tell you whether you are aligned with faith or fear, with abundance or lack, with creation or reaction. When you understand this, you begin to use emotion as your ally. You let joy become your practice, peace your foundation, gratitude your daily breath. You no longer wait for the world to give you a reason to feel good. You create the reason within yourself. You become the cause, not the effect, and as your inner feeling stabilizes, the outer reflection must shift to match it. The great illusion is that feelings are responses to life. The truth is that life is a response to feelings. The world is emotional energy crystallized into form. Every event, relationship, and opportunity in your experience is drawn by the vibration you consistently hold. When you change your feeling, you change your frequency. When you change your frequency, you change your future. To live by feeling is to live by faith. It is to choose joy before the evidence, peace before the outcome, confidence before the success. When you sustain that emotional state long enough, you cross the bridge between what was imagined and what is experienced. Every emotion is an act of creation, every feeling a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. So when you imagine your desire, don't just see it, feel it. Let your emotions rise and overflow with the reality of it being done. Let your heart celebrate the victory before it appears, for the moment you feel the fulfillment deeply enough, the unseen begins to move, and the bridge between spirit and matter is complete. The outer must mirror the inner, and the emotion you sustain with faith will soon become the life you live in form. Detachment is the secret weapon of the awakened soul. It is not coldness or indifference, it is quiet power. It is the stillness that comes when you finally understand that what you desire is already yours in the unseen, and therefore there is no need to chase, force, or beg. Detachment means you trust the process more than the proof. You trust divine timing more than visible progress. You no longer grip the outcome with fear, you release it with faith. Most people confuse detachment with apathy, but they are not the same. Apathy is the absence of desire, detachment is the presence of trust. You still desire, you still envision, you still believe, but you release the anxiety that demands constant evidence. You stop checking to see if your manifestation has arrived because you know the law never fails. You rest in the certainty that what you have accepted in consciousness must express itself in form. The need to control the how and when of your desire is rooted in fear. Fear says, if I don't watch it, it might not happen. Faith says, it is already done. Detachment is faith in motion. It is the natural posture of one who knows the invisible world governs the visible. When you detach, you free the desire to manifest without interference. You stop pulling at the seed to see if it's growing. You let it take root in peace. When you truly understand that consciousness creates reality, you realize there is nothing left to chase. You don't chase what you already possess in spirit. You don't plead for what has already been granted. You don't panic when appearances look contrary, because appearances are only echoes of past beliefs. You remain steady, calm, and confident, knowing that the outer world must eventually yield to the inner state you persist in. Detachment is not about giving up, it is about letting go of resistance. When you cling to something with fear or desperation, you send out a vibration of lack. You are affirming, I don't have it yet, and that feeling of absence becomes the very energy that delays manifestation. But when you let go not out of hopelessness, but out of inner knowing, you align yourself with abundance. You become an open channel through which the desired experience can flow naturally. Think of the ocean. It does not struggle to fill the shore, it simply flows. The tide moves with rhythm and trust. So must your faith. Detachment is that rhythm, the effortless confidence that your manifestation is part of a greater order, unfolding with perfect precision. You do not command the sun to rise, you simply know it will. In the same way, you do not need to command your desire to appear. You simply rest in the knowing that it already exists in the unseen, awaiting its perfect hour to emerge. When you detach, you shift from control to command. Control is rooted in fear, command is rooted in faith. Control tries to force, command allows. Control lives in tension, command rests in assurance. Detachment is the art of letting divine intelligence orchestrate the details, while you remain anchored in your end result. You live from the wish, fulfilled without trying to manipulate the steps that lead to it. There is immense peace in this state. You stop living in emotional highs and lows, no longer tossed by appearances. You become still inside, and that stillness becomes magnetic. It draws everything you need without effort. The moment you no longer need something to feel whole, life rushes to give it to you. This is the paradox of creation. When you stop chasing, you start receiving. When you no longer cling, things cling to you. Detachment teaches you to value inner being over outer evidence. You realize that your job is not to make something happen, but to remain faithful to your inner state of fulfillment. You can say with confidence, it is done, and rest. You stop measuring time, stop questioning process, stop worrying about how it will all come together. The world is but a mirror reflecting your conviction. When the conviction is stable, the reflection must follow. True detachment comes from identity. When you know who you are, you no longer crave validation from outcomes. You understand that the outer success does not make you powerful. Your inner being is already powerful. So you create not to prove something, but to express who you are. You enjoy your desires, but they no longer define you. You move through life with lightness, grateful, expectant, but never desperate. The one who is detached walks with quiet confidence. They don't rush, they don't beg, they don't panic. They live in a frequency of already having, and that vibration commands reality more effectively than all the effort in the world. When others struggle and strive, the detached soul simply aligns and allows. What you allow from faith comes faster than what you chase from fear. Detachment is not laziness, it is divine discipline, the discipline of trust. It takes strength to stand still when everything within you wants to act out of fear. It takes courage to rest when logic demands proof. But the one who learns to rest in faith becomes unstoppable. They move with divine timing, speak with authority, and manifest with ease. When you detach, you let go of timelines. Time only exists in the realm of appearances. In the realm of spirit, everything is now. The more you believe in not yet, the longer not yet remains. The moment you rest in now, the unseen begins to crystallize into form. Detachment collapses the delay because it removes resistance. You no longer block the flow by worrying, doubting, or striving. You simply live in alignment with the finished work. Even when circumstances seem to contradict your belief, detachment keeps you anchored. You no longer react emotionally to delays or disappointments because you see them as illusions. You can say, "This too will pass," and remain unbothered. Your peace becomes your proof. Your calmness becomes your confirmation. Every time you choose peace over panic, you are declaring that you trust the unseen more than the seen. The outer world always mirrors your inner attitude. When you are desperate, it shows you delay. When you are detached, it shows you flow. Your calmness is the sign that you are aligned with the creative power. Nothing can stand against the one who is inwardly still. The quiet mind is a channel for miracles. Detachment is also love in action. It is saying to your desire, "I trust you to find me." It is giving your vision the freedom to unfold in the most perfect, effortless way. It is faith so deep that you no longer need to control or explain it. You know the law is at work. You know the promise is already fulfilled. And because you know, you rest. Let the world rush and worry. You will not. You have found the still point where creation flows. You no longer chase outcomes, you magnetize them. You no longer fight with appearances, you transcend them. You no longer need to prove your faith, you live it. This is the power of detachment, to hold the vision without holding the fear, to believe without demanding evidence, to let go without losing faith. In that sacred letting go, creation happens. The moment you release the grip, the universe breathes. The invisible begins to move, the path clears, and what you sought begins to find you. Detachment is not the death of desire, it is the birth of manifestation. For only when you release it in faith does the desire return to you multiplied, perfected, and complete. When you act as if circumstances don't matter, you are not escaping reality, you are redefining it. You are declaring with your being that your inner conviction is stronger than outer resistance. The fifth principle, living in the end until it becomes normal, is where this entire teaching finds its fulfillment. This is where imagination becomes substance and faith becomes fact. To live in the end means to dwell in the state of your desire realized, so continuously and naturally that it becomes as ordinary to you as breathing. It's no longer a performance, it's identity. At first this feels strange. You affirm things you can't yet see. You imagine conditions that do not yet exist. You speak words that seem to contradict your current experience. But this is how creation always begins, not with evidence, but with acceptance. Not with sight, but with inner seeing. You are rehearsing the reality that is yet to appear, until that rehearsal becomes the rhythm of your being. The moment it becomes normal to you, the outer world must reflect it, for consciousness is always externalized. Think of an actor preparing for a role. At first he practices lines, studies the script, learns to inhabit the character. It feels artificial, but as he continues, something shifts. The boundary between actor and role dissolves. He no longer pretends, he becomes. Likewise, when you persist in the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you move from imagination to embodiment. You stop trying to make it happen, and start being the person for whom it has already happened. And when you live from that vibration, reality bends to confirm it. Many people fail not because they lack faith, but because they fail to persist until the end state becomes habitual. They waver between old self and new self, between hope and doubt, between belief and evidence. But manifestation belongs to the steadfast, to those who dwell so completely in their inner conviction that outer contradictions lose power. When you refuse to leave your assumed end, even when everything screams the opposite, you are shaping the unseen forces of life itself. You are pressing your desire upon the formless substance of creation until it solidifies. Living in the end means no longer waiting for signs or proofs. It means knowing that the unseen act is the real act, that the inner decision is the event itself. The moment you assume it and feel it as done, creation is complete. The rest is simply time catching up with your consciousness, but until that alignment feels normal, you will keep shifting between faith and frustration. Therefore, the real work is to normalize the miracle. How do you do this? You do it by repetition, immersion, and surrender. You repeat your new state not mechanically, but with emotional reality. You saturate your inner world with the tones of the wish fulfilled. You wake up feeling as though the prayer has already been answered. You walk through your day giving thanks for what the world has not yet seen. You let every action, every word, every thought spring from the end you've already occupied. And slowly the resistance fades, the old self grows quiet, the new self feels familiar. What was once imagination becomes your natural atmosphere. Living in the end is not about arrogance or pretense. It is about alignment. When you live as if your desire were already a fact, you are aligning with divine intelligence, the same power that calls things that are not as though they were. You become one with the creative principle that shapes galaxies and guides seasons. Your feeling becomes prayer, your assumption becomes law. You are no longer waiting for miracles, you are living them inwardly. Notice how children embody this principle effortlessly. When they play pretend, they are completely lost in their imagined world. They don't question whether it's real, they experience it as real. That's why their joy is so pure, their creativity so powerful. They are not acting as if, they are being it, and that is the essence of manifestation. You must become as a child again, free of doubt, fully immersed in the inner picture, until the line between pretend and real vanishes. The problem with most adults is that they think too realistically. They worship facts and dismiss faith. They allow circumstances to dictate imagination, rather than imagination dictating circumstances. But creation flows from within outward, not the other way around. The world is the shadow of your inner assumption. To live in the end is to stop trying to fix the shadow and instead become the light that casts it. When the inner man changes, the outer must follow. Living in the end until it becomes normal requires patience and silence. There will be moments when nothing seems to move, when the world feels deaf to your inner command, but those are the very moments when creation is at work. The seed must grow in darkness before it can break the surface. If you uproot it to check its progress, you interrupt the process. Likewise, if you keep doubting, you halt manifestation. Let the unseen forces work. Trust the silence. Keep living from the end with quiet conviction. The unseen is not inactive. It is incubating your miracle, and here lies the greatest secret. You will know that you have succeeded not when the outer changes, but when your inner state no longer needs it to. When you no longer feel anxious, when you no longer seek proof, when you can rest in calm assurance, then you have reached the end. That peace is the sign of alignment. It is the stillness before manifestation. At that point, the outer world has no choice but to conform, for you have already become what you sought. The end is not a place you reach, it's a state you dwell in. It's the consciousness of fulfillment, the awareness of I am, as the source of all becoming. To live there until it becomes normal is to be reborn in truth. You stop chasing, striving, hoping, and you start being. You no longer ask when it will come, because you know it already is. That knowing becomes your foundation, your stability, your power. And once you make this your way of life, something miraculous happens. You begin to notice how easily everything aligns. The people, opportunities, and events that once seemed distant start to appear effortlessly. Synchronicities unfold, doors open, the impossible becomes natural. Why? Because you are no longer trying to attract from separation, you are radiating from completion. The world cannot resist the one who has already become their desire in consciousness. So keep living in the end, feel it until it feels normal, walk in it until the line between imagination and experience dissolves. Do not visit the state of your wish-fulfilled live there, for once it becomes normal, it must become visible. The world is compelled to mirror the conviction of your heart, and when that happens, you will not be surprised because you knew it all along. You were living it before it appeared.